Everything look good?
Yep. I think if you want to go live whenever, I can
Oh,
tell you
I'm
if the
live
stream
now.
looks good. Oh, are you? Oh,
Yep.
let me refresh my Twitch client. I don't see you as live.
I'm seeing it.
Oh, there it is. It just took a second to pop up.
Present. No.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Wrong one. Okay. Let's see. It's okay. One more minute. Just wait for people to hop in. All right. Well, hello. Welcome to another EGaDS meeting. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Right. So some events upcoming. If you need your shirt still, we'll be at the GDC on this Friday from 5 to 7. So make sure to come to that. We'll remind you. We'll send another reminder on Friday. Just keep this date in mind. And this Monday, next Monday we have a workshop on character modeling. So that's cool. It's in Blender, you know, the best software, just in general. So come down to that if you've ever wanted to make a 3D little boy. And finally, on next Friday Thursday we have a cross social with Women in Gaming. It's a Minecraft social. So if you've ever wanted, I think it's like a building competition, which is pretty cool, honestly. Uh, yeah, I'm excited for this, but yeah, it'll be the next Thursday. You gotta join the Wig server to participate. So we'll probably put that link out soon in announcements. All right, so joining EGaDS if you still, for some reason, haven't joined. It's only $10. You get this cool shirt, and check these guys out. They're pretty cool. Oh, thank you, Zynga, for sponsoring our club. And all right, so with that, we got a speaker tonight. very special guest, former EGaDS president, uh, emote emote, uh, like the person behind this particular emote, which is in the EGaDS server. So right now he's a software engineer at Farbridge, um, and he's here to share his experience working at a small indie studio. So, hey Adam, how you doing?
Hey, thank you for the introduction, Grant. That was very, very kind. Yes, I was the president of EGaDS at one point, and I'm now memorialized in an emoji, which I'm not sure what emotions it's supposed to convey, but don't misuse it, please. Am I good to share my screen?
Oh sure. Let's see. I gotta stop this real quick.
Awesome.
And yeah, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and share.
All right, it is disabled currently.
Oh, duh, that always happens. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You gotta set as make a co-host.
There's always going to be technical difficulties in person or digitally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's full screen.
Okay, so.
All right, can y'all see this? There we go. Okay. All right, it's working, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Good to me.
Okay. Yes, I am Adam Leslie, former president of EGaDS. I am currently a software engineer at Farbridge, which is a lovely small studio that I've been working at for 3 years now. Basically, my entire time in the game industry. And so it's 3 years in. I felt like it's probably time for me to conglomerate all of my learnings and spread them onto you beautiful children. I kid, you're not children. I feel like I'm basically only a tad bit grown up, having been 3 years in. So whatever I say here, please take it with a grain of salt. I will probably be contradicted by many industry veterans, but maybe at some point I'll have the same level of knowledge as them. We're getting there. So this is me. You've seen the emoji. There I am. EGaDS. I was the president my senior year. Before then, I was an intern at Unity, which was my first real job in the industry. I worked on the build pipeline. Many of you have probably seen this button many times. I know I have. It's caused me lots of pain. And after my internship at Unity, I got an internship at a company called Farbridge. And then I got a full-time job there after graduating. And at my internship, I worked on this app called Masterworks Journey Through History. It's a VR app that's out on the Quest. You can see it in like the Oculus Store and Viveport. Since then, I've worked on lots of things, VR and non-VR, but that was one of my first things. So I'm going to talk about 3 things. How I got into the industry. I'm going to walk through basically a case study of one person's job history, and kind of extrapolate that to some ideas of like how can you apply this to yourself. And then I'm going to talk about working at a small studio. That's 3 years of my life. It's been good, just to put it succinctly, but I'll get into depth. And then lastly, just some general things I've learned over time. So how I got into the industry. Programmer centric, obviously. Sorry to everyone who's not a programmer, but hopefully the general ideas are applicable to everyone. So Unity. I was a UTCS student. I didn't know I wanted to work at Unity at the time, but I joined EGaDS and I learned I wanted to make games. And through workshops, through game jams, lots of game jams, I learned how to use Unity. I wasn't really like planning to like make that my focus, but it was a valuable thing to learn, right? Like it's a tool that you use in the game industry. And yeah, so on one hand, I learned Unity through EGaDS. On the other hand, computer science you generally need to learn C++ at some point. There's the OOP class, there's an actual C++ class, and I wanted to learn it as soon as possible because I wanted to take game tech as soon as possible. So I took the CS 105, the class you learn C++ in. And so it's my sophomore year. I don't have any plans for an internship. I go to the UTCS career fair, which was in person. I'm sorry that it's not now. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm sure it's harder. And I hate career fairs. And so I talked to every game studio there. I didn't really care about any of them though. I wasn't passionate about them. And then I walked up into the middle of like the showroom floor, and there's Unity booth, and I didn't know Unity was even going to be there. And so I walk up to them, and I just pour my heart out, hand them my resume, and they tell me they want web developers, and I'm not a web developer. I don't want to develop web apps, but that's what they wanted. And I hand them my resume. I tell them I'm learning C++, and then they say, "Oh wait, what? We actually are looking for a C++ person, but we didn't advertise it anywhere." And I just happened to fall into their arms at the perfect moment before they'd even advertised this role. And luckily my passion got me to that point, right? Like I was interested in this company. And from there I interviewed with them, and I got the internship. So let's wrap that up with a few points. So the first big thing I needed was the hard skills, right? Unity needed a C++ person. I didn't know they needed that at that point. I just got lucky. I took the C++ class early enough for that internship. And then Unity, huge tool in the game industry. They would not have wanted me to work for them if I had never used their tool before. So I had the hard skills in the bag. The second part was the networking. So I went to the career fair. Networking at career fairs is very difficult. It's a hard thing to do. It's hard to make a lasting impact on someone. You just hand them your resume in the end, right? It's not a real relationship with a person, but passion helps. It can make it a lot easier to talk about yourself. So I got pretty lucky here. And then finally, the interview, I demonstrated my hard and soft skills. And they were up to par for an entry-level position. And yeah, I got the internship. So it was hard skills, networking, and then an interview to demonstrate those things. Yeah. So after
Can I really quickly, Adam, you have a little window kind of blocking the bottom right hand of your screen. I don't know if you meant to do that or not. It's not really cutting any. Yeah, there it goes. It was cutting off the last word of your slide there.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Can y'all see like my Zoom stuff as well?
No. It was just, I think it was part of the Google Slides thing, just kind of overlaying on top of your slides, but it's gone now, so you're good.
So, technical difficulties aside, Unity internship acquired. So my next internship was with Farbridge. So to get to the Farbridge internship, another lucky turn of events. Unity Austin's team lead, they decided to leave the Unity office and start their own company. I had made a connection with them through my work with them at Unity. I demonstrated my abilities there. The internship went great. And I kept in contact with them. I actually emailed them like 2 weeks before they decided to start this company. So lucky there as well. And ultimately, they wanted me to work with them. And so I was one of 2 interns they hired out of, there was 5 people total working at Farbridge at the time. And so that connection that I'd made got me the next job. I didn't have to do an interview. I didn't have to not a hard technical interview. I didn't have to, sell my soul on a career fair. It was the networking that paid off in the end. And so, number one, the hard skills, the soft skills were already shown. Like I'd already demonstrated that previous experience, but the networking, this relationship I'd made, got me the job. And it cut and dry, like no stress. The networking paid for it in the end, right? That's all it was. And so all in all, hard skills, you need those, obviously. You're all in a college degree program. You're getting the hard skills. I trust that y'all are learning the things you need to learn. And in EGaDS as well, like learning game development specific stuff. Soft skills, being able to talk to people, communicate. I'm going to talk more about this later, but For now, just simple, right? Um, Networking, that's the crux. I mean, your first job, like for me, my first job was the hardest one to get. Afterwards, it was easy. And I've also had other internship opportunities just through networking alone, like not through an interview process, just connected with the right person at the right time. And that's what it comes down to: right place, right time. You could call this luck, but ultimately persistence is key. Like the more places you put yourself in, the more opportunities you're going to have to be that right place, right time. And so, um, yeah, networking however you can. I'm not sure what the best way to do it right now is, but I know there are a lot of game industry meetups still happening online. Um, and so I would definitely attend those. And obviously, EGaDS is one of those places. I mean, you're meeting industry people, but also your peers, you're building connections with them. And that's really valuable as well. So I applaud you for that. And this definitely assumes you know what job you want to get the hard skills and to network with the right people at the right time. You kind of have to know what you want or fall into it like I did and get lucky. But that's harder to do. So that is my getting into the industry story. Next up, what it's like to work at a small studio. So that stuff was like 4 months of my life. This is like 3 years of my life. So whenever I say a small studio, I'm talking about a small company with small projects and small teams. But you could be at a big company with small project and a small team, or a big project with a small team. Like a lot of these things are applicable as long as like there's at the bottom level, there's like some smallness involved, right? You have like a small number of coworkers directly interacting with you. And I found that this is definitely a place that I love to be in. So small companies are small. They are tight knit. You can know, I have known every single person who's walked through the doors of our office or work from home office, and gotten to know them pretty well. It's definitely harder working from home, but I love that. Like I get to be connected with producers and engineers and artists and designers on a very personal level. And also the CEO, you know, like I have the CEO's ear if I need it. And I can really influence the company a lot more than at a big, huge conglomerate. Not to say that they're bad, but that's just one of the options. So there is less room for direct mentorship. Being one of 7 people in an office, everyone's got a job to do, and you got to do it quick. It's kind of like a startup lifestyle. You have things you need to get done, right? And that means that there's not someone above you who can put their hand down and help pull you up. There's definitely a lot more responsibility, more autonomy, and ultimately more hats. You have to be able to jump from different parts of the code at any point in time, work on features and bugs, and help artists and designers, and work on the build pipeline, and then work on if there's like some weird bug that nobody has ever seen before and you have to go track it down. There's not one person for each of these things. Like at a big studio, you definitely get to widen your horizon. And so great generalists are valuable. There's a lot less infrastructure for hiring the specialists. Like if you're working on like a GTA or something, they hire someone to do a single feature and that person is amazing at it. But at a small studio, you're working on 20 different features at all times. And yeah, it's definitely a different sort of like trajectory. You don't get your name on the big game, but you get a lot of like diverse experience. There's also a smaller internship program generally, if there is one at all. So it's harder to get in. They're not hiring all the time like a big tech company is to just basically have someone else to fill a position in the future. They're hiring based on need. I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So they're small. Small means flat hierarchy. So like I was saying, I can have the CEO's ear if I really need it. I can reach out to people on Slack very easily, and no one's like overwhelmed with communications all the time. There's more teamwork happening and less like boss to employee communications, right? I definitely have more coworkers than like higher ups. And that's definitely a decision on our company's part, but it's also something that's a lot easier with a small company. With a big company, it's hard, because you have to disperse information across like huge amounts of people and make sure they're on track. Um, and that definitely means they can work on things that are huge, like GTA, or something that Rockstar can work on, whereas we can't work on something of that scale. But I think there's a trade-off there, and I definitely like the small side of things. So yeah, there's less day-to-day organizational overhead. I mean, like, my Slack notifications don't go off as much as someone at a big companies go off. I know that. I spend less time reading and more time working, I think. Um, that definitely changes as you move into more of a lead role, but still, even then, there's a lot less people you need to communicate with, less producers needed, etc. And then, yeah, like I said before, need-based hiring. This is a thing that's across the industry. Every company hires based on need. And so you need to be able to fill the gap that they have working on a project. If they need someone who can do a specific thing, you need to be able to do that specific thing. And they might want a generalist as well, but generally there's a hole that needs to be filled, and that's why they're hiring. They're not hiring to fill out the ranks in the future, or bring someone up to be a better engineer. Yeah. So small companies. And then lastly, I touched on this a little bit. The project types we get to work on are generally a little bit smaller. So at Farbridge, we work on a lot of contract work. So bigger companies or people we know asking us to work on something for them. So it has a direct payout, right? Like, it's valuable. We get to stay afloat a lot easier because of that. We're not working on something that has an end point that should get us money, right? There's no worry about an endpoint of revenue potentially not being there. We have it in the contract. We know how much we're getting paid. We can stay afloat with this many people. We can hire this many people, and yeah, that's really valuable for a small company. And it also means we get to work on big projects too. Occasionally, we'll get hired to assist with some small part of something, or do something, like port work, port a game to another platform, or work on a prototype. Or do some research for a company. And so a lot of these things are not directly making a game, but they're very game adjacent, and they are really valuable experience, in my opinion. I think I've gotten a lot of personal enjoyment out of the projects I've gotten to work on. And then, yeah, games. So Farbridge does actually have a game we self-published and released called Jar Wars. It's a VR game, and it's really awesome. But we only have one of those because they're hard to do and they take money, and yeah, it's not the same thing as contract work. And throughout the development of Jar Wars, we had contract work on the side, so these things can go together as well. Yeah, different project types for small companies versus large companies. So that is my general overview of what small companies are like. Here are some things I have learned. Soft skills. I talked about these a little bit. I didn't talk about them. I mentioned them earlier whenever I was talking about jobs. Soft skills are incredibly valuable, and they aren't the thing that interviews are about. They're not a thing that you learn before you get the job to get the job, right? But they are, like, most of the hardest work I do is soft skills for me. Like, communication can be really difficult. And I definitely say that as an engineer, not the most sociable person in the world. But especially in a job like game development, where everyone is working on one thing, like one project that is like creatively inspired. If two people have different ideas in their brain about what they're making, the development can just like come to a direct halt, or someone does the wrong thing that someone else thought would be right, and it just totally messes up in the end. You have merge conflicts, not maybe literally, but like spiritual merge conflicts, and those can be hard to rectify after they've already happened. So communicate before you need to roll back everyone's work, and learning how to do that is really valuable. You have to really get comfortable with not understanding something. Like you have to recognize whenever you don't know how much you know. Like if a designer came to me with a document with the designs pretty well described from like a player's perspective, but like there wasn't any real depth to how I would implement it technically, I'd really need to talk to them directly about it and like ask the right questions to understand that. I definitely think asking questions in like a classroom setting is a good start. I know that was always something hard for me personally. Like what I would have like a gut feeling that I didn't know something, but I wouldn't ask the question. So maybe that's a good place to start. And then yeah, working from home, all of this is twice as hard and twice as important because you can't have those fly on the wall conversations that you can have in an office setting. Like I can't just walk down the hall, run into someone and like bring up a topic. It has to be all very like specifically designed. I have to make sure the communication happens. And yeah, that could be difficult, but necessary. So continuing on soft skills, there are a lot of different people you need to communicate to. In general, you got to know what someone's context is for like a results focused conversation and what their ultimate goal is. So if I'm talking to a producer and they want to know how the project is going, like what things are looking like, how my gut is feeling about it, I know that they have to talk to the client. They have to communicate this information ultimately to the client, and I have to put the things that I say in technical ways, but also in ways that can be communicated ultimately to them. And so talking about timeframes and stuff like that is really valuable for a producer, for instance. For QA, completely different. They are in a very different situation. Same for artists, designers, and engineers. Whenever you're talking to different people of different disciplines, you need to remember that they are looking at the project differently than you. And you need to remember that, yeah, they're still just as valuable as you, and their time is just as essential. But you just need to remember that, you know, they have a different goal in mind. And I think game jams and the capstone course are like the perfect place to get like this stuff in your mind. Like you need to communicate to get an actual thing done basically as fast as possible. And taking the capstone course, doing game jams, I've definitely seen bad communication from myself, like not asking the right questions to the right people at the right times, putting it off maybe too long, just because I didn't know how to talk about it. But definitely feel comfortable putting yourself out there for the good of the team, the good of the project. So yeah, other disciplines, team leads, you got to know how to talk to someone who is in the same discipline as you, but is making sure you're on the right track, making sure that you don't need direct help, and if you do, that you can get it. And so you got to ask questions to people who are more experienced than you, basically all the time. Like use their time wisely, but don't hesitate to ask questions when you need it. General coworkers, I mean, you're not always talking to someone in the context of getting a thing done. You know, you got to remember everyone is a person too. You can talk like normal people. You don't have to talk about work all the time. Talking to the client, there's projects where, especially at a small company where I'm directly interfacing with the client, usually it's better to have someone in between, but can't always be the case. So you got to remember that this is generally their baby, you know, stuff like that. And then mentor-mentee relationships, that's a similar thing to team leads, but definitely a little more personal. And yeah, like I said, Capstone, great place. Game Jam's great place. And EGaDS in general, like places where you can talk to people of other disciplines and like build a real relationship with, if you're an engineer, with an artist, if you're a designer, with, I don't know if many people are like specifically going the producer route, but basically just building relationships with people who don't speak your language all the time can be really valuable, because you can sort of see their mind work differently than yours, especially whenever you're talking about work projects or school projects. So that is soft skills. Next up, this is a term that I learned probably like 2 years ago, like a real deal learned it. It's dog fooding. So this word comes from the phrase "eating your own dog food," which I'm sure if there are business people here, I don't know. That seems like it's probably a very businessy term. Like you've probably used that before, but I had never used it. But it essentially means if you're not using your own product, you're not going to know how well it works. If you're not eating your own dog food, you can't make it taste better because you don't know how it tastes. And everyone knows dogs have, there's a lot of foodie dogs. So I think a really good example of dog fooding, in my opinion, is comparing Unreal and Unity. A lot of people ask this whenever they're getting started, like what is the difference and which one should I choose for my project? And I think both are amazing tools, and I love Unity, obviously. I work there. I use it every day. But it must be said that Unreal dog foods their product a lot differently than Unity does. Unreal is using their Unreal Engine to make hit games. Like they are funding their own studios to use this tool and then backporting the results from those games into the engine. And so something like Fortnite, you're going to get the results of that technological advancement to make this game in your own tools and your own game, and that's really valuable. Whereas Unity, they don't have their own game studios; they are assisting other game studios and whatnot, but they're not making it first and foremost to sell products. So their tool ends up being a little different, and it's great for small studios, and Unreal is great for big studios, and there's probably overlap there too, but it just must be said. Dog fooding is a really valuable way that I've seen to especially look at game engines and how they get developed, and kind of the way that over time progression of the tool happens. And for video games, this is kind of similar to like QAing something. Like you need to test the product to make sure it works, or play testing it just to see if it's fun, right? Like if you don't get it into the hands of people who might like it and see if they actually like it, then you're kind of running some risk there. I know I have definitely like worked on something so much that I like its mechanics got ingrained in my brain, and like I thought it was this amazing thing and thought it worked so good, and then I put it in front of someone and they just didn't understand it at all. And I had understood it for like a year at that point because I'd used it every day of my life. But yeah, really valuable stuff, QAing and playtesting games. We, on our current project, we have a playtest every Friday, and like a team playtest. We all get together and playtest the build. And we also like playtest as we work, obviously. So yes, dog fooding, a useful term that I did not know whenever I was a student. So I think time estimation is the most valuable, most overlooked skill that everyone needs. At some point, a producer is going to ask you, how long will this thing take? And my usual answer is, I have no idea. How did I get here? But it's so valuable. It's so important. And it's so necessary to actually like plan a project as a whole. If you ever want to get into a lead role, like actually higher up in a company, planning projects, you need to know how to estimate how long something's going to take. And it definitely comes with time. Well, pun not intended. It definitely comes with experience of estimating time on projects in the past. And so I would say one valuable thing to do would be the next time you're working on a project, whatever it may be, estimate how long something's going to take, and then like actually look back at the clock whenever you're done and see how long it took. Generally, you're going to way underestimate it. I always do it. I think most people do. So like at least multiply it by 2 next time. Whatever you think, just multiply it by 2 and see if that works out. So yeah, once you can do it based on your own work output, then you can generally estimate things a little bit easier. So yeah, gauging the difficulty of the task or feature, and then kind of applying some like wibbly wobbliness to it, and kind of just guesstimating at a certain point is what happens. But I feel like the machine learning of the human mind kind of comes out whenever we're time estimating, because all of our past experiences just get filtered through, and we spit out a number and it's usually wrong, but it's close. And so the goal is to get closer and closer. And then, yeah, the next thing is whenever you're thinking about a feature, think about who needs to be involved, because if they don't know they need to be involved until like halfway through the feature, it might push the time estimate way further out because they should have started at the same time you started. And then the other thing is, especially with engineering tasks, this is really valuable. If you're working on a big feature, sometimes you can split that work up between multiple engineers. And that's a really useful thing to think about whenever you're thinking about a feature, is like, if there was like 3 people who I could put on this project, on this task, how could I split it between them? Oftentimes you can't, but sometimes you can. And yeah. And then finally, if you're thinking about a thing you want to do, a task or a feature, and you can't draw a diagram of like, this thing goes here, and then this person helps with this, and then this artist needs to make this asset, then you're probably going to run into issues along the way, and your time estimate is probably going to be wrong. That's just something. I draw a lot of diagrams. I find it very helpful for my work process. I have a spiral notebook of graph paper, and I have just terrible drawings. The words are not very centered at all. It looks terrible. No one will ever see it except me, but it's very helpful. So next up, this is similar to the last slide. I touched on some of these things, but the general idea is imitation is flattery and an incredible learning tool. So if you look at your favorite game, you look at some features in it, you maybe pick out your favorite UI element. It looks beautiful. It spins in a certain way. Think about how you would make that. Start with who needs to be involved. Engineers need to maybe code something to make it spin. Maybe some designers need to make sure it fits the game's aesthetic, and then an artist needs to actually make the tool. I mean, make the asset itself. What parts of the game does it touch? Does this touch the achievement system? That's something that often you'll forget. If you're making a big game and you're making a feature, maybe you need to affect the achievement system somehow with it. Or there's lots of little things that interconnect in big games that you wouldn't really naturally think about. Like the save system or the player profile system, especially if it's like a multiplayer game. That profile has to get sent to the network, to the server. It has to get saved on the server. And yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. And it's really valuable to try to pick apart what those moving parts are. Then what potential issues do you think you could run into? Where do you think the bugs could be? That's always valuable. I've definitely gotten better at finding bugs because of stuff like this, like just considering how I got this bug in the first place. And next time I implement something like it, I'll know that, okay, I had a bug in this place previously. I'll try to dance around it. And then finally, if you want to go above and beyond, do you think you could recreate the feature in your game engine of choice? That's a really valuable thing. Like especially starting with like a small game like Pac-Man or Tetris or something, like maybe mapping out in your brain how you would do it. And then if you want to go the extra mile, actually implement that game and try to make it work right. Or one big thing I've seen is like VFX in really popular games. People will recreate those VFX and like put it on like the game dev subreddit on Reddit. That's a really valuable learning tool because you can kind of see how yours didn't like actually match up to the final product of their game, and like you have to try to figure out how that happened. Like what parts are you missing? Yeah, it's a really valuable tool just for like double checking your ability to plan something out in advance as well. So one more slide. No, wait, 2 more slides. Perfect is the enemy of good. I've done this so many times. I've wasted so much time in my life implementing the perfect solution. Whenever the simpler solution would have been way more valuable. I could have moved on to a more valuable task. But instead I like over optimized something. I over engineered it because I love over engineering things. It's really fun. I love find the optimal solution and make it look good and make the diagram look really pretty, and it's reusable. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's usually not as valuable as it sounds in the first place. Sorry to like the hardcore software developers out there, but video games um, are generally like one-offs. Like the code doesn't get reused unless you've got a really great studio and they're really smart about it. But um, that's a goal. So time spent finding the perfect solution is time that could be spent elsewhere. So there's probably something more valuable you could be doing besides over optimizing this thing. And it's time lost if the situation changes. So if you spent like 10 hours working on this awesome system and then suddenly the playtests show that this system wasn't that great, the designers rework it a little bit, your system might just be totally kaput. You need to completely rework it. Maybe it was the less optimal solution that was going to be more reusable in the first place anyways. There's definitely some annoying situations you can get into. So know when to optimize and know when not to. And I'm sure this definitely applies for art as well. You know, you don't want to oversimplify all of the assets. I'm probably talking way out of league here, but you know, you don't want to spend way too much time on one character that might not even be seen in the end, you know, or just in the background or something. Yeah. Okay, last slide. One last piece of advice for engineers: learn how to profile and optimize. If you open up your Unity project, whatever you've done in the past, open up the profiler, see where your frame time is going. Open up the graphics debugger, see how rendering works in Unity, see like how much of the rendering time is being spent on transparency, how much time is being spent on opaque geometry, how much is spent on et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, see if you can optimize some of that code that's taking the most time. This is very valuable to do because at some point you might have to port a PC game to the Switch and optimize everything you thought was just fine. That's kind of a fun situation to be in, but also like, oh God, I've got to optimize so much stuff, so little time, and it's good to have experience at that point. For everyone else, obviously learn your game engine. Even if you're not the person working in it every day, if you're a producer, learn the game engine. It's really valuable. You can interface with the team a lot better. And learn source control. An artist, a designer, audio person who knows source control is like, that's beautiful. You save a lot of engineering time and you can help out other artists and designers and whatnot. And yeah, it's really awesome to see when that happens. Yeah. So here are some links that I can click and you can't. There's farbridge.com, a beautiful new website from my company that just got uploaded like a couple days ago. And then my LinkedIn, which is linkedin.com/in/Adam H. Leslie. I can probably put these in the chat as well. Yeah. So thank you all for listening to my very long rants. Yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen now and I can take some questions if anyone has any.
Well, hey, thanks for that talk. I actually have a question about the last slide you had there.
The links.
Yes. So you said something about source control. Is that the same thing as version control?
Yeah. Version control and source control are synonymous words.
Okay.
So like the most common one, the one that most engineers at it's in my experience, everyone uses Git because it's free, it's open source, you can use GitHub. But in the game industry, more often than not, the big studios are using Perforce, which isn't free, and you have to run a server or pay for a server, but has a lot of valuable things for artists and whatnot. But especially if you're going to a small studio, Git's more than likely going to be used, and it's just a really valuable. Once you learn one, you kind of understand the others a lot better.
See.
Yeah, and I think game jams, people don't know source control generally, so this is just a thought I had. It might be valuable to do a game jam where you just learn source control on the team and like you just sit alongside everyone else and like learn how the source control works. because it's not like
Yeah.
a fun thing to spend time learning. So it might be good like to bracket that time, or I don't know.
That yeah, that happens many times at game jams. I imagine there's some like problem with GitHub.
Every game jam I've ever done
Yeah,
has issues.
yeah,
There's also there's Unity has its own like built-in source control. Forget what it's called, but I don't personally recommend it. We used it on my
yeah.
capstone project, and I wish we hadn't.
Uh huh. Yeah, I think I remember that.
I got a question. What would you say, coming from a regular software development background like Windows applications and whatnot, what would you say is the fastest way to learn a new engine? Is it through just doing it and making code that you realize, oh, that wasn't very good, you want to go back and redo it? Or is there, should you do game jams? I guess I'm just curious, is it just get to work on the main project you had in mind, or what's your tips for that?
It's a good question. I think there's a precursor, obviously, that you need to know the programming language involved. I think learning a programming language alongside the game engine is probably going to be difficult, but
Yeah.
um,
Assuming you knew, I guess,
yeah,
just sort of understanding what the engine offers, because then you're working on it, you realize, oh, there's something called components. Why didn't I try that? And then,
I would
you know,
say, depending on the engine, um, Unity and Unreal, I would recommend this for both of these. Um, Look at the documentation. Like
yeah,
there, there is, at least for both of those, there's a lot of documentation about the entity component system. There's documentation about the different update functions, the different like these built-in functions that Unity calls, and then Unreal has uh, all of its systems that it documents really well.
hmm
So reading through that like core engine documentation is really valuable. Obviously, if you've never used a game engine before, it's going to be hard to parse through and hard to read. It's going to be dense, but
hmm
if you have used an engine before, um, it gets easier and easier. Like you start to map the two things between each other. And yeah, at least those two engines, their documentation is great. And so after you've read through that stuff, you kind of understand the core ways to make things work. Like how do you make things move over time, and
right,
how do you do like um, like different programming paradigms like callbacks, and like how do you do UI stuff, and
yeah,
depending on what you want to do, obviously you should specialize in like, am I doing 2D stuff, am I doing 3D stuff, but so once you do that, then yeah, I would say try making something, see what you can't make, and then find out why you can't make it.
right. So
um,
it's literally just, it's actually probably faster to just sit through and read the documentation like a book ahead of time and understand just what's in it.
the core stuff, yeah,
Yeah,
like the stuff about how the engine works, like fundamentally you kind of have to know it, or you're going to be just a fish out of water. I mean, there's the other thing is there's a lot of online like videos about Unity in particular, like that the game, it's so widespread and there's so many tutorials about it. That stuff is really valuable, it's really good.
yeah,
And then obviously EGaDS workshops, and game jams as well. Like if you can go to a game jam and be on a team with an engineer who has more experience than you, and you can sit by their side and learn from them, that is like, heck yeah, that's really valuable. Obviously, hard to do, but
hmm
and it only like happens a few times a year. But yeah, ultimately making things trial and error. Uh, great place to great place to start.
okay, appreciate it.
So we actually have a question in Twitch chat.
Okay,
Um,
fine.
they're just asking, what old or new? What is your? Do you have an old or new dream game slash series that you would want to work on?
Oh, like an existing franchise that I'd want to work on?
Sure, yeah, or an
Oh,
old
that's
one.
a good question. Hmm. I think the games I've played most in my life are probably FPSs, but I don't have a particular desire to work on one. I think I love the like little indie narrative things like Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. That one's like one of my favorite games. Like, oh, what is the um, Oxenfree? Oh man, that game is good. I haven't played their newer ones, but I love games like that. And I don't know if there's like a particular one I'd want to work on, like that. But I would also like really. I love the like history of game development. I would love to go back and work on like Halo, like the original, or work on like Zork, like the text adventures, or honestly like an arcade cabinet game. Like, dude, I would learn so much. I would have so much fun learning that stuff. Old game engines in general are like that's if I could spend all my time reading through old game engines, I would do that. But I mean, you can't really do that because most of them, it's so sad that so many games code will never see the light of day except by those few engineers. I would love to see like a digital library of old game code, and I know there is some being uploaded to GitHub, but like you know that'd be
like
cool.
yeah, like a lot of Nintendo games got leaked like this past
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, that's sad. But I know a lot like at least like Zork has been uploaded to GitHub like officially since it's not copyright anymore. I don't think. Like all the old Infocom games.
I see.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, yeah, that would be cool to like look back and like, kind of learn from maybe use that code as like a learning opportunity to see what
Totally.
works.
Yeah, I think I've done a lot of projects now that are working on someone else's code. Like we've taken it over, and a lot of the things I mean, you learn a lot looking through code and disagreeing with it, the way it does things, and then refactoring it and realizing that your solution wasn't that much better, anyways. But yeah, reading through code is great. I think a lot of people, at least back in the day, a lot of people got into game development through modding, and so like generally those things weren't open source, but like interfacing with those pieces of code and whatnot, that's kind of similar. Like you learn a lot that way. I know my boss, that's kind of how he got into game development.
I got another quick question, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
How do you when you have an idea for a new project in mind, how can you determine if the scope of it will be out of your hands, way too big? So, for example, I'm terrible with estimating. I triple it. That's my rule. I triple my times. So do you have anything is it just through experience like anything else, or can you give some sort of, it always feels easier when you're thinking about it up front, and then I'd imagine it's a lot harder.
Yeah, definitely. I think in my experience, it has been from experience. My camera is real weird now, but yes, I think from experience, not estimating things right, you will become better at estimating things, at least. As far as entire projects go, so I'm generally not the one deciding how long an entire project is going to take, especially with contract work. That's not something that I'm generally deciding. It's generally something laid out in advance with the client's input. But I think, yeah, estimating time is hard. You need to definitely take into consideration especially with games, all the other disciplines. Like you need to remember artists need to be involved at some point. Designers, UI stuff needs to get done. And if you're alone working on all that, that's going to take a long time. Doing just the engineering is hard enough for you, right? Yeah, I don't have any hard and fast rules. I don't know if anyone does for estimating time of like X plus Y equals, this is the answer. But experience definitely helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
There should be like a database somewhere of
actually
how long every game took to make, how long each part of it took. There's probably big studios that do that.
It's because you always think you're like, oh, I want to have this and multiplayer, and I'll fix that, but you got to go, geez, can you
okay.
really
So I guess
do
the
that?
real
You know what I mean?
the real answer is keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not calling you stupid.
You can always make it more advanced later, that kind of thing.
Yeah, keep it like, I mean, this is something that I definitely got out of the game capstone, which is know what is good about the game, make that first. Like only make the
Right.
good thing first. And then as you're making it, you're going to realize it's not good. And then you're going to have to change it and make it good. So you don't want to do all the extra stuff, all the pillars before you make the foundation, right? Like you got to make that foundation rock solid first, or your time's all going to be lost. And so make like, if you're making Pac-Man, make a character that walks down hallways. Make that first, and like make it playable. Make a build. Be able to make
Yeah.
a build with that, and like show it to your friends before you go above and beyond.
Story,
Before you make
concept
the
art.
Steam page,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
don't need a intricate backstory. I mean, unless you're like a world building designer, like
True.
that's what you want to do, you can do that, but do that and don't make a game.
Right.
Don't start out making a I mean, like when I was a kid, I was always like, oh man, I want to make like a game where you can walk around in the real world and do anything.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like,
Cool. Thanks.
Adam, so stupid. Yeah. And luckily I didn't try to make it. And if I did try to do that, I would hope someone would tell me stop. So if you ever have too big of an idea, send it to a friend, like a trusted colleague who will accurately give you information about the thing you're doing. They're not going to just like make it sound too good to be true. Give it to someone who will tell you no. Ask someone who has more experience than you if this thing will take this long. I mean, that's one option as well, like using someone else's experience to help you. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Adam. You mentioned earlier that at smaller studios, that have fewer engineers and whatnot, that generalism is very important. I guess my question is, if you're working on like a contract game or your own game, and you're working on like a gameplay feature, and you realize that we're missing this tool or we're missing this system, in larger studios, I feel like they just hand that to a tools programmer, somebody just say, give me this in a month or something. Do you, in a smaller studio, or I guess in your experience, would you just take a break to do that yourself and then continue on, or maybe ask a friend, or how would that kind of work in a
Yeah,
smaller studio?
I make tools. I do gameplay programming. I optimize the code. I work on the build pipeline.
So a little bit of everything.
Do lots of things.
Yeah.
And our core engineers at our small studio do all of that. We've got like 3 people who have been at Farbridge since forever.
Wow.
And all 3 of us are like super generalists.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us more than others, but yes. And I think that, you should still you need to communicate that you need to make this tool to someone that's like at least in my position, like I have people who are caring about how long this project takes. So if I realize there's a tool that should be made for this and it's going to take more time than someone else thinks it would, I'll need to go to them, tell them I need to make a tool. If possible, sometimes they could, especially a producer at a studio, could reach out to another engineer who maybe doesn't have as big of a workload as I do, hand it to them, especially if they know how to make tools. So yeah. Communication is really valuable. Obviously, if you're on your own, I mean, yeah, you got to make the tool, right? Yeah. Yeah, making Unity tools are like super easy. Editor windows are great. They're super, super valuable and not super different than writing like game object stuff.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love tools. I mean, I worked at Unity on the build pipeline. It is a tool.
Yep.
So I have a quick question. So you mentioned the importance of networking and how you got a lot of your opportunities through networking. I was wondering, how do you stay in contact past your initial contact? What's like the standard professional way to stay in contact with people?
That's a great question. I have the same question, but I think email is, at least in my experience, like a really good professional communication method. Like it gives people a chance to answer at their own pace, right? Like it's not like a messaging system where you see they've seen it and then you're like on the edge of your seat. Are they going to respond? Email is it's more traditional, I guess you'd say, but you can also do longer form emails and it's not as weird, which is great. Yeah, I say email is good, especially like emails are great if you know the person already, right? Like if you haven't made this relationship, like if they haven't given you their business card, then like cold emailing them like off of their website, it's going to be a little different, but that's still probably not that bad. Like if I got an email from a student, like I wouldn't like just delete it instantly. You know, I would probably respond. But yeah, I think see, I'm still not the best at networking, and I still like I am not the best person to ask this question to, um, but that's what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. It's because like I'm a freshman, so this is all still new to me, the whole networking process. I was just wondering, it's like to stay in contact. Is it as easy just asking how they've been, or is it more professional than that?
Yeah, I think there's like professional contact is generally best whenever it's like you have a genuine like friendship sort of backing it, or like a growing friendship, like you can actually talk to the person. um, the best professional relationships I've had have been people who I genuinely want to talk to, um, and then on top of that they're also professionals, and going to meetups and meeting people like that obviously, um, building your social skills is really valuable and is going to make all this a lot easier. And it definitely took me all of college to build some good social skills. um, but yeah,
Thank you so much.
for sure.
Anybody have any other questions? Or Grant, is there anything from Twitch chat that I might have missed?
I just want to point out Shannon's comment in the Zoom chat. Also, interaction on social media posts like LinkedIn with professional context can help build a relationship too. And yeah, I totally agree with that. LinkedIn is like the best place to like add people, and like that's the best professional social media. You can definitely message people on there, and people post on that. Um, and also, I know Twitter is huge in the game industry. I don't really do social media very well, but I know Twitter and LinkedIn is like the professional social media. So definitely make a LinkedIn, fill in your info. You can start posting on there and like liking other people's posts, and like getting into that groove is a good thing. Obviously, you might not have much to put on there yet, but still, like getting a headshot is great. Like that's really valuable. Um, that sort of stuff.
I have another question kind of before we wrap up, I guess. When you say, you were one of the original kind of people that went to Farbridge when it was starting, were you at all um I guess intimidated would be the right word, to be like, oh my gosh, this company has less than 10 people, like what is gonna happen kind of thing?
Oh God,
Um yeah, just
totally.
yeah.
I mean, yes, I definitely felt what you would call imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
Or like just a general fear of like, what am I going to be doing? Am I cut out for this? I felt the same at Unity. I was working at like the game engine that everyone talked about, everyone in EGaDS, all the people who were like my seniors and like were experts at this tool. I was going to be working on the tool that they were like intimately knowledged with. Um, but whenever you get down to it, um, people are like once you get to know people, like you feel so much more comfortable. You can really like see that you're not like the odd one out. Not having a lot of experience, especially at an internship or like something like that, that's expected, right? Like the people are there. Hopefully, like if it's a good company, they're there to help you and to make sure you feel comfortable and that you're able to do stuff, because
Yeah.
ultimately they did choose to hire you, and so they see something in you. They see your abilities. They see uh, some professionalism. They see something that they want in their company. And so ultimately, like I was able to have a good relationship with the founder of the company. That's really valuable. I could actually talk to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was definitely intimidating because we were starting on a project that like I was the first engineer on this project, and like we were experimenting and stuff, and ultimately other engineers got involved, but and they definitely like took it over and made it better than I had done. But Yeah, I think once you start working and you get to know the people, you'll get over that fear, that imposter syndrome. I think everyone feels imposter syndrome all the time, like across all disciplines. Like there are things that I'll start doing and be like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and then I'll. But the best thing to do is reach out to people who can help you, who can make you feel more comfortable. If you really feel out of your waters, just make sure someone else knows. Like, hopefully you're in a hopefully you're in a company where that sort of support network can exist, and hopefully you have someone you can go to like that. Um, yeah, and definitely having just like socialization, like social friends in the real world outside of your job, like it's really valuable to talk to them about that sort of thing as well. If you don't have a support network in your company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Everyone starts at the baseline.
Yeah.
And I feel 3 years in, I'm not that much higher up. So
No.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I sort of have a question going off of what Mason asked, because I assume going to work at such a small studio is kind of scary in the sense that you're not sure if it's going to last or if it's going to be stable. What was that experience like for you, and like what was your thought process?
Totally. Yes. There's definitely some fear involved. I mean, definitely. I mean, as an intern, it was a short time span, right? Like I wasn't worried about the company like not succeeding because, well, it's 3 months, not a big deal. But taking on a full-time position at this small company where they didn't have like backing investors to keep it afloat if things go awry, that's definitely, yeah, a very valid, very real fear. Um, and it is a possibility, right? Ultimately, yeah, you have to consider that as an option. Like you should definitely consider that alongside your finances. Make sure that if that does happen, hey, you have like a backup plan. Like if you feel like a company isn't going to survive and um, you don't have like savings to keep yourself afloat for a few months, then you should really seriously consider that. It's similar with big companies also, though, with large projects. Oftentimes at the end of them, non-essential staff will be cut. And so there's horror stories all over. So it's not always small studios that are the ones that fail. Like the big studios, the big franchises, they'll cut off a lot of employees kind of out of the blue. And so in all situations, it's great to have financial backing, like a savings account of some kind, if you can do that. Obviously, some people can't, but yeah, it's very valid concerns. And there were definitely times where projects were ending since we're doing contract work, right? If a project ends and enough time goes on and we don't have another project coming in, yeah, that's scary. Like you need to communicate with the higher ups, make sure that they think everything's going to be okay, and hopefully they're forthcoming enough to communicate that with you. Luckily, at Farbridge, we've got a very communicative group of people in charge, and I definitely would have had much more fear if it wasn't for them and their ability to communicate with us, and being able to go to them and talk to them about it. Yeah, communication is really valuable for that sort of thing. But yeah, it is a possibility.
Anybody have any last questions here?
How do you get better at coming up with questions?
Oh, that's a good question. I already got it, man. Best question asked today.
I feel like whenever it's like I'm in class or like I don't know, or if it's like I'm at a EGaDS speaker event or wherever, it's just like it's like, man, there's a treasure chest of knowledge right there, and it's like I can't find my cup. I don't know how to ask them questions, and like of like value for me, and like also for them to like, I don't know, also enjoy answering the question.
Yeah.
Though I guess I probably shouldn't think too much about that second part, but like that unit, yeah.
Yeah, I felt that every speaker meeting I went to in EGaDS, at least my first 2 years. So like, don't worry, like I feel like that's very natural. Um, I was often awestruck whenever I went in there and like the speaker would be someone who I found cool for some reason or another. Um, and I was always really impressed by everyone else's questions. But at a certain point, I think um, if it's someone like you should really ask questions if they're genuine questions. Like while someone's talking, you can like I guess it's sort of this side process that's running. Like whenever you can pick out something that you don't understand or something that you want to know more about. I mean, I often would jot down notes because I'm a dork, but that can be helpful. Because oftentimes I would just forget my questions at the end if I had any beforehand. But yeah, I think I don't know what the answer is to that, but I have felt that myself. You're not alone.
Even today, one of my professors brought in a speaker, and it was super cool. It was the cinematic director of or cinematics director of Gears of War. And I was just like, oh my god, that's so cool. I mean, it wasn't really applicable to me, so I didn't have like, because I want to do like game art and stuff. But I mean, I guess it's like a little bit applicable to me, which is why I like woke up to attend in the first place. But I was just like, I want to ask him a question, but there's nothing coming to mind. I mean, I only had like a few hours of sleep last night, but still, I wanted to come up with something to like come like get out of it, or at least like more personal to me. But
I think I have two answers. So number one, get enough sleep. Everyone should be sleeping as much as you need, which is like 6 to 8 hours or something. So
usually I'm pretty good, but these past few weeks have been a little bit rough.
understandable. It happens,
Yeah.
but sleep is very important. So is water. But second answer, I think, especially with something like that, someone who is an expert in a specific thing on a specific project or studio, if you have technical knowledge around the thing that they're doing and you like know something about it, maybe how another game did it or how you have done it in a project in the past, like that's a really great jumping off point because you can ask them technical questions about like how do you do this on your project um, or more general projects about like processes. I mean, as a student, you haven't had the full working in a game studio experience, but like my natural inclination there would be like asking them, what is the process for like getting an artist's work into the engine for you, and like how much are you involved in that? Are you part of the technical side of that? And um, like there's a lot of technical questions that you could think of if you have the prerequisite knowledge to think of them, I guess. So maybe as you expand your technical worldview or like your knowledge of how other games have done it in the past, those questions are gonna flow a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And also being comfortable asking questions. Like it can be nerve wracking to asking someone who you see as like
yeah,
a person who's done amazing work. That can be hard to just get up the nerve to do that, but it's
yeah,
often
for
worth
sure.
it in the end.
Yeah, thanks. That was very helpful.
Cool. It's okay, and it's also okay if my answers aren't helpful. So or my talk.
Well, this time it was, so don't worry about it.
Awesome.
I have a very unimportant question, but you mentioned it offhand earlier, and I wanted to know what emotion do you think the Atom emote conveys, and what would constitute its misuse?
Okay, I'm not going to give any ideas about misuse because I don't want it to become whatever bad meaning it could become. So I feel like I probably shouldn't have even said anything in the first place because now it's just going to get misused. But what emotion does it convey? Honor, beauty, everything good in life. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea. It's just my face. I I feel like any answer is vanity, and I should be smitten down from above for saying anything.
We've been using it to react to the announcements that you were our speaker, so
Yes.
that's one emotion it conveys. I think if that counts as an emotion.
If Adam Leslie, the human who I am, is involved in an event or anything EGaDS related, you can use it then for sure. That is an absolutely accurate usage of the emoji, but maybe not what you're asking for. It's not an emotional usage. Although I am an engineer, so I don't understand emotions. So
Thank you so much for that answer.
If it's any consolation, Adam, the officers made me do Twitch emotes for my officer emotes.
so much worse.
It's I live on in multiple infamies now.
I love it. Yes, I'm so glad we started that
It's awesome.
process
I
because
hope it keeps
now
going.
every future president has to be an emoji now.
It's like a rite of passage.
Yeah. Yes, I'm lucky that we started the Discord whenever I was president.
Yeah,
Fun in there.
definitely.
Yeah, a little known fact about the Discord is that the first message sent in it is you saying, "I am your worst nightmare."
Oh, fuck.
I just think that's a little,
hilarious.
I don't know, ominous.
I feel looking back through those Discord archives, there's some like communist propaganda in there of like overruling me and everyone trying to take over. Those were some.
Wait,
fun, the
that
early
happened
Discord
years
days.
ago. They've been threatening to coup me for the entire year.
Good, it lives on.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, half of our early Discord usage was this like emojis being thrown around and revolts happening.
That sounds about right.
History repeats itself over and over again.
Time is a flat circle.
History
Okay,
is doomed to repeat itself.
That's the game I would want to work on is a True Detective video game. Season 1 as a video game would be, whew, that would be cool.
Good stuff. Well,
Right. Well,
yeah.
there are
You
no
got a
more
grant.
questions. I think we can end the meeting here. But yeah, thanks. Thank you so much, Adam. This was awesome.
It was. Thanks for
You're
being
welcome.
here.
Yeah, it's really fun to talk with y'all.
EGaDS lives on. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah. Y'all have a great night.
Yeah, thank
You
y'all
too.
for coming. See you soon.
All right. I'll put my LinkedIn in the Discord as well. So
Oh.
everyone,
Oh, cool.
awesome.
Sweet.
See y'all later.
All right.
Bye
Bye.
bye.